Okay, so basically this is another past paper that we're going to go through. So basically this one is taken from 2020. So basically it's the same instructions. It just says this paper consists of 6 questions in 2 sections and all that stuff. So basically you should actually read the front page just in case things change. Always read the front page for the different instructions. But now let's get into the real question. So, alright, so basically, obviously, they cannot test you on the entire syllabus, but they will pick out different parts and put it on the paper too. So anyways, this is going to be section A. We're going to start here and then we're going along. So the first question is saying, so basically, this is a diagram of a diseased artery. So what do we know about arteries? Arteries, they carry blood away from the heart, right? So we know that. So it carries blood away from the heart at high pressure. So now it's asking, identify the condition shown in figure 1. So obviously what we see here is an artery, right? So it brings blood away from the heart at high pressure. And what we have here specifically that's going to tell us what kind of disease is the plaque. So as you can see, the plaque literally build up, and basically plaque is like a mixture of different things, like for example like cholesterol and all that stuff that gets stuck in the arteries, and it can cause this condition right here called arteriosclerosis. We cannot pronounce it, but this is the condition right here. So this is the condition that causes a diseased arteries, and basically where we have plaque building up. As you can see, it's literally a build up because regularly or naturally the blood is supposed to pass through, right? Because artery is a blood vessel. So now when you have this plaque, it's blocking the blood flow and can lead to this disease right here. So this would be the answer for number 1. The second question is saying, describe how the condition in figure 1 contributes to hypertension. So this plaque being within the artery is literally obstructing blood flow, right? So obstructing blood flow, and it's going to increase resistance, and when the blood is having a harder time moving through, it is going to raise the blood pressure. So that's how we get hypertension. I know that hypertension is the same thing as high blood pressure, so it's the exact same thing. So if you see the word hypertension, don't be alarmed. Hypertension and high blood pressure is the exact same thing. It's just high blood pressure is just like layman term or just regular term, but the medical term is hypertension for high blood pressure. Alright, so now it says, next question says, name one potentially fatal cardiovascular event that the condition in figure 1 may lead to. So the very first one can be a heart attack. And how we know that it's heart attack? It's the most obvious answer. First, the question is saying cardio. From you hear the word cardio, you know it has to go with the heart. And if we go back to the arteries, we know that arteries bring blood away from the heart, right? So it's a blood vessel. So basically, it can lead to a heart attack because what will happen is that the blood that's supposed to leave the heart and obviously go out, the blood is going to be blocked, and it can kind of like cause a backflow, you know, so it can lead to a heart attack if the blood is not flowing and regulating how it's supposed to. So that is how that condition can be a heart attack for this diseased artery. Then the next question states, state 2 factors other than diet for developing the condition in figure 1. And the reason why they say other than diet is because obviously we know that cholesterol, if your cholesterol levels are high and stuff like that, it can literally build up and start to block within the blood vessels, right? So that is why they scrapped diet completely. So we cannot mention anything about any cholesterol or any fatty food or nothing like that. So it means that in this situation, the other risk factors for developing the condition is going to be high blood pressure and also smoking. So basically, high blood pressure, the same hypertension. So if somebody already has high blood pressure, right? So let's just say that they don't have this disease, right? But they have high blood pressure. So the fact that they have high blood pressure, it kind of is like a risk factor, right? So it increases their risk of developing the condition. So having high blood pressure, it would cause uncontrolled high blood pressure would damage the blood vessel, right? Increasing the risk of atherosclerosis, right? So increase the risk. And then also smoking. So smoking, when you smoke, it would contribute to damaging the lining of the arteries, promoting plaque buildup, and also increasing the risk of heart disease, right? So these are two other risk factors that you can mention other than diet. So you cannot send up no cholesterol and like that, causing the plaque to build up in the blood vessel. So you can mention these two: high blood pressure. If the person already have it before, then they are at risk of potentially developing this condition, and also if they are a smoker, then it can also help to damage the lining of the arteries and also lead to this condition. So those are two risk factors that you can consider. Right, so now this question is talking about is a menu. So basically it says individuals with heart disease are advised to follow a special diet to improve their condition and overall health. From the menu below, circle the healthiest option for each mealtime, which would contribute to improved cardiovascular health. So this is a very easy one because you can literally just use your common sense and look at it and see which is the healthiest out of all of these, right? So you have breakfast, you have lunch, and then you also have snack. So if we look at the first column with breakfast, right? So basically where the X's are, that is what the answer is. So I'm never circle it, but there's an X there indicating that that is the answer. So white bread and butter and hot cocoa, we're going to scrap that one completely, right? We're going to scrap that because it's not the healthiest choice. You know, butter and fat and all that is not the best choice. Hot cocoa, especially if I put sugar in there, that's not the best choice, because what we're trying to do is to improve the cardiovascular health. So anything with too much cholesterol, too much fat, we don't want it, right? So we're going to scrap white bread and butter and hot cocoa, frosted flakes and milk and banana. On a first glance, it seemed like so that would be healthy, but you see, frosted flakes is processed, right? So then probably put sugar and all kind of something in there. That is why we're not going to choose frosted flakes, corn flakes, and milk and banana. The answer is going to be oatmeal with fruit and herbal tea because it's the most naturalist and it will promote the best cardiovascular health. That is why that is the answer. For lunch, the cheeseburger one, we scrap it completely. That is not healthy. That's cholesterol, and that is just leading to a heart attack, right? Because it's not healthy. It will build up in your blood vessels and can cause heart attack and stuff like that. You have fried chicken, coleslaw, macaroni and cheese, and lemonade. That one also sounds very appealing, but fried chicken, cholesterol, the oil, it's not good. So the best option for lunch is going to be grilled fish, right? We get the protein, we have rice, fresh green salad, string beans, and a glass of water, since you know sugar don't good for us, so that is why that is the answer. And then dinner, slices of pizza could never be the answer, just on first glance. And then also peanut butter and jelly and white bread could not be the answer either. It could not be the answer. Too much stuff in there, processed stuff. So the best answer would be fish soup with vegetables, right? Because when you're talking about cardiovascular health, as I said before, we're trying to get rid of oil and just overall fatty fats. Like that's what's going to cause the plaque to build up in the arteries and stuff like that, and we don't want that. So that is why we cannot have those as the answer, and the answer is going to be fish soup with vegetables. For the snack section, it's very obvious. Potato chips, processed stuff, that candy bar, too sweet. So it's best to go with the mango, which is natural. So that is going to be the answer for the snack one. Then, right, so basically it says figure 2 shows a graph of the leading causes of death during the years 1900 and the year 2000, right? So basically, this is 1900, this is 2000. So basically it's saying what percentage of the deaths in the year 2000 were likely caused by non-communicable diseases. So first we're going to have to look on 2000 since that is what it asks for. So basically, heart disease, so first, what is a non-communicable disease? So basically, it's a disease that cannot be passed on. So for example, if you touch somebody, them cannot just get it, right? So that is what they're asking. What percentage were caused by non-communicable diseases? So the first one up here is heart disease, right? So basically, if me touch somebody, them cannot just get heart disease just because I have it. So that's non-communicable. Colon cancer, that's also non-communicable. Cardiovascular disease, me cannot just touch somebody and then get it. That's also non-communicable. COPD, that's also non-communicable. And then pneumonia and influenza, this right here, this is communicable. So for example, if somebody have the flu and you go around them or you touch the same things as them, then you're likely to get the flu. And pneumonia can also be contagious. Then diabetes mellitus is also, this is non-communicable. So non-communicable, 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 communicable, and then non-communicable again. And then accidents are not necessarily considered diseases, so we're not going to count it in it. So basically, if we want to find out the percentage of deaths in the year 2000 that were caused by non-communicable diseases, we are going to have to add up all of these, right? We're going to add up heart disease, colon cancer, cardiovascular disease, COPD, and diabetes mellitus, and it's going to come to about 70%. Now, we cannot add pneumonia in it because it is communicable, and then also accidents are not considered diseases, right? So we won't add that in it either, right? So that's going to be the answer for that. Then it says outline the most significant difference in the types of diseases that resulted in death in the year 1900 as compared to 2000. So if we go back up here, we realize that in 1900, most of them are infectious diseases, right? Meaning that you can get them from people, right? So for example, like smallpox, you know, that can be contagious. You go around them, you might get it. Pneumonia, you might get it. Diarrhea, these things can be transferred to somebody else, especially if you go around them. That is why we say infectious diseases. So some of them are in fact communicable, versus in 2000 where most of them are non-communicable. Literally the only one that is communicable is the pneumonia and influenza from the 2000 list, while over here smallpox, diarrhea, pneumonia, all of these things can be infectious to other people. So that is why that's the answer. So 1900 had more infectious diseases than in 2000. Right, so then it says suggest 2 reasons for the difference in the types of diseases outlined in C2. So 2 different for the difference in the types of diseases outlined in C. So basically, what can be the difference in the types of diseases within the 2 years is perhaps better educated public. So for example, if people are now better educated and understand that okay, if somebody have diarrhea and you share things with them or you eat the same thing, you might catch it. If you go around them, or let's just say somebody who um have gastroenteritis or something and them a vomit or them a do and it can be transferred, or if somebody have pneumonia it can be contagious, or them have flu. People understand and are more cautious now because they're better educated. And the next reason is also more accessibility to healthcare. So more healthcare and treatment is more readily available, so it's able to be controlled a lot more. So for example, if somebody might get pneumonia, they can seek healthcare, they can go to the hospital. People just overall know how to better handle these infectious diseases now, right? And if anything wrong, they have the healthcare system. So basically, it would not cause as much death. So for example, if you look at the 1900, if you look at the 1900, you had a lot of people dying from these different infectious diseases. Now in 2000, less people are dying from infectious diseases because they have more access to healthcare. So instead of somebody just sit down on them yard and wait for dead, they can go to the hospital and actually get treatment, and that would cause a decline in people dying from infectious diseases. So that would be the answer for this. And then the number 2A. So it says list 4 characteristics of living organisms. So this right here is a very easy question, right? So the 4 that I picked, it can be growth, reproduction, excretion, and movement. But basically, we know that there are 7 characteristics of living organisms. That's growth, reproduction, irritability/sensitivity, movement, excretion, and then also nutrition and respiration. So if you pick any of the 7, it would be correct. Right now, B said, say 2 organelles found in plants that are not found in animals. So basically, a chloroplast is very unique to plant cells, and also a cell wall is also unique to a plant cell. You could have maybe put large vacuole because you'll only find a large central vacuole in the plant cell, and it's not found in animal cells also. So that could be a possibility. Okay, so now the next question says Sanjay carried out an experiment to confirm that oxygen is generated from photosynthesis. Figure 3 shows his experimental setup, and then basically this is the procedure right here, right? So basically they want to test, basically to find out if oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. And you remember the formula says carbon dioxide plus water. Sunlight over chlorophyll give you glucose and oxygen, right? Because you get oxygen from plants. So once you know that, this should be pretty simple and straightforward. As a matter of fact, I think we did do this. You're supposed to do it in your labs. Alright, so now state which experiment A or B that would have generated more bubbles. So experiment A would have generated more bubbles, and the reason for that is experiment A had a light source. So if we go back to the photosynthesis formula, basically experiment A had a higher light intensity, right? Because we don't know how the room that the experiment was carried out in, we don't know how the room was, but all we know is that experiment A had a higher light intensity, so that means that it was getting enough light in order to carry out photosynthesis, right? So if we know the formula, we know that light is a necessity for photosynthesis to take place, so they need light. So now the next question says state what Sanjay would have observed happening to the glowing splints in experiment A and experiment B. So basically in experiment A, because the plant is photosynthesizing a lot, right? So since the plant is photosynthesizing a lot, it is going to be producing a lot more oxygen bubbles, right? So the bubbles will be coming up. So now when Sanjay would have taken out the test tube and put the stick in there or whatever, right? The splint would basically glow. It would kind of have like a fire, right? So that is what would happen. And the reason, wait, me feel like me jump it. So that would happen. The splint will glow. And then in B, when the splint go in there, the splint would not have any fire, would not have any glow, basically, right? And then we're gonna explain why. So then it says identify the gas that would have produced the bubbles in experiment B and state the process which would have produced the scat. So for experiment B, carbon dioxide would have been produced and the process would have been respiration. Now the next question that followed, so CO2 is a gas and then the process is respiration. The next question says explain why Sanjay can conclude that oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. So basically in experiment A, when he put the splint in the test tube, right, and it had that fire or that glow, right? So basically that glow only happened because oxygen causes combustion, right? So that is the reason why the splint glowed slash had a fire in the test tube. It's all because the presence of oxygen was there. So if there was no oxygen or not enough oxygen in there because the plant was not photosynthesizing enough, then the splint would not glow. Would not glow. There would be no fire. There would be no light, basically. And in state which experiment served as a control and give one reason for your response. So B was what served as the control, and this is because there was no manipulative variable. So basically we were kind of not testing for anything in a sense with B, because in A we had a light source, so we could see that okay, we can see how the plant responds to having the light intensity and everything like that. So basically the control would have been B, and that would be because there was no manipulative variable. Alright, so the next part is going to be the endocrine system. So the endocrine system has literally everything to do with glands and hormones, right? So the first part is saying identify the glands labeled A and B. So from you see the A pointing in the brain, we know that that is going to be the pituitary gland. And then from we see B pointing on top of the kidney, we know that is going to be the adrenal gland, right? And these are probably two of the most common glands that everybody might remember out of all of them: kidney, adrenaline, and then pituitary brain, right? So now complete the table by inserting the missing hormone or hormone function. So LH, luteinizing hormone, stimulates the corpus luteum to produce progesterone. This is what they have already. But the part that they want us to answer is FSH. So the function is to promote growth of follicles and production of estrogen in the ovaries. So basically this is the follicle stimulating hormone, right? That would be the hormone for here. And then the adrenaline is what would initiate, so that's the hormone that would initiate fight or flight response in the body, just overall preparing the body for action, and increases the heart rate and the blood flow to the muscles. So for example, if somebody realizes them in a danger, or maybe they're getting attacked, adrenaline would be what would be released. That would initiate that fight or flight response within the body and just start bring up your heart rate and sending more blood flow to the muscles. Then it says outline one difference between the endocrine system and the nervous system. So the endocrine system and the nervous system kind of work very closely to each other. But since there's a difference, the endocrine system, the biggest difference is that the endocrine system utilizes hormones while the nervous system uses nerves slash neurons, right? So nerve cells. So they use nerve cells slash neurons to transmit signals. So basically the endocrine system releases hormones within the bloodstream, and then the nervous system uses neurons to send messages all over the body. You know, you have your motor neurons, sensory neurons, all of those things. And then the hormones is a different situation. Another difference between them is that the endocrine system is very slow. So obviously because these hormones are being released in the bloodstream, it means that they are moving it's moving very slow. So we know that our body has blood in it, right? So for example, if a hormone is released in our bloodstream, right? So, oh, actually, this is the biggest one. This is another difference. So basically, with the nervous system, it has a target, right? So for example, if maybe we have a sensory neuron or something, maybe we touch something or whatever, and it's going to send that message to the interneuron, and it's going to get to the brain. So basically, the nervous system is a lot more precise. With the endocrine system, when that hormone gets released into the bloodstream, it goes all over the body. So for example, if let's just say maybe let's just say maybe the adrenal hormone or whatever, right? But and basically the target is for it to I don't know, let's just say it released in the body and it has a target. So if we release a hormone in the body and it has like a target, because of the bloodstream, it's going all over the body, but it will only act where it's supposed to, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically the endocrine system is very slow because it's going in the bloodstream, so it's going all over. And then the nervous system is a lot more precise and a lot more faster. Hopefully that makes sense. Just follow what's here. Don't even bother with me. Just follow what's here. This is a lot more simpler. So, anyways, next question. So, Rhonda is a 53-year-old wife who is experiencing challenges with her weight and is feeling unwell. The doctor suspects she might have a thyroid problem. The table before shows the results of Rhonda's blood tests. Okay, so based on the table, suggest the endocrine condition that Rhonda may have. So basically, this table is showing us a test, thyroxine and thyroid stimulating hormone. So normal levels for thyroxine should be between 4.6 to 12. And then for the TSH, the normal level should be between 0.5 to 0.6, right? So now we have Rhonda's levels. So Rhonda's levels is 1.8 and then 0.55. So basically, what we're going to look at is the thyroxine part here. So basically, this is saying that if the value for the patient is less than 4.6, that is what it's saying. If it's less than 4.6 and she has 1.8, it means that they have hypothyroidism. If her value was greater than 12, then she would have hyperthyroidism, right? But because her value is less than that, the answer is going to be hypothyroidism, right? So anyways, that's the answer. Identify the lab data from the table that supports the diagnosis of the endocrine condition, and it's the same thing that I was explaining. So less than 4.6 and she has a 1.8, so she's less than 4.6, and that's what makes her have hypothyroidism. Now the next question says treat three conditions or three symptoms that Rhonda may experience as a result of the conditioning B. Alright, so then this question says state whether Rhonda's condition is caused by a malfunctioning pituitary gland and then give one reason for a response. So basically, the pituitary gland is what controls all the other glands. It is referred to as the master gland, right? So if anything was wrong, we would be able to trace it back to the pituitary gland. So basically, give one reason for your response. So basically, we say no, it's not the pituitary gland that is malfunctioning. And how we know is because the thyroid stimulating hormone is in the normal range. The thyroid stimulating hormone is what is released by the pituitary gland, right? So if it was the pituitary gland that was malfunctioning, this value would not be in a normal range. So let's go back up and look. Rhonda's levels for the thyroid stimulating hormone, it is 0.5, which is within the normal range. So that is how we know that the pituitary gland is not malfunctioning, right? That is how we know right here. So as we said before, if the pituitary gland was the problem, we would know, since it is what secretes the thyroid stimulating hormone that gets the thyroid gland to work. But in Rhonda's case, it's in the normal range, so that is not the issue. So the next question says the doctor has prescribed a hormonal replacement drug, and as a result, Rhonda has lost 5 pounds. However, she's unable to lose any more weight. Suggest whether the doctor should increase her dosage and state one reason for your response. So basically, no. Basically, so the hormonal replacement drug that Rhonda was given, right, is mainly to just fix her symptoms, right? So it's just to fix her symptoms. So when someone has hypothyroidism, it basically means that yeah, their fatigue, tiredness, all that stuff comes with it, right? And that is because it affects the metabolism, right? So taking this replacement drug, the focus or the aim is really to fix the metabolism. So run. So basically, that would be the answer. The drug is already fixing her metabolism, and she cannot lose any more weight. So what's the point of increasing the dosage, right? Once the symptoms are fixed, and the reason why medications such as this one is because it affects the metabolism. So what can happen is like water retention is what would cause her to like gain weight. So with them increasing, she taking this drug, her metabolism increasing, that is why she's losing the weight, right? So no, we wouldn't need to increase the drug. Alright, so next up, this is going to be cell division. So, cell division is very simple and straightforward. So, cell division promotes the growth and reproduction in organisms, and these processes occur by mitosis. So, we have two types of cell divisions. We have mitosis and also have meiosis. But based on first glance, this question is targeting specifically mitosis. And just to know the difference is that mitosis is basically to repair worn out cells and stuff like that, while meiosis is specifically targeted to our sex cells. So the division of our sex cells is meiosis, and division of like our somatic cells, our body cells, um, those are done by mitosis. So basically, the first question: identify one cell in the body in which mitosis takes place and one cell in which mitosis does not take place. So basically, mitosis takes place in somatic cells. Somatic cells is just the same thing as body cells, right? It's just a fancy name for body cells. So, cells that mitosis take place in would be like our muscle cells, skin cells, cells like that. And then another cell, the type of cells that you would never ever ever see mitosis happening in is in our sex cells, right? So like our egg cells and our sperm cells, absolutely no mitosis can take place. They're only meiosis, as meiosis is the designated process. It's a designated cell division to divide those sex cells and not mitosis. Right, so now let us look at the process down here. So process of meiosis, right? And we said that so at the end of mitosis we're going to end up with two daughter cells. At the end of meiosis we're ending up with four daughter cells, right? So we're going to start off diploid and then we're going to end haploid in meiosis. So it says match labeled state of the cells with the description by placing the correct letter A, B, or C on the line. So if you're completely clueless, just you need to remember that meiosis, the end result is going to give four haploid daughter cells. Four haploid daughter cells. You see the four haploid daughter cells at the end of meiosis right here. So when we say haploid, we know that C is going here immediately. And then we know that the starting point, we started off with diploid. So we started off diploid, and that's what is A. And in here, common sense would tell you that this is, you literally see divide. You start off with 4 and now all of them have a pair. So you can literally use a common sense and say, okay, DNA duplication took place right here, and that's it. So haploid this, C, diploid A, and then B is going to be DNA replication. So then it says state one factor that would account for the variation in daughter cells at the end of meiosis, because we know that when at the end of meiosis every single the four daughter cells that are produced, they are different. None of them are alike, and this is because of two processes. Even though this question only answers one, but there are two processes that takes place during meiosis. I know that meiosis does the lap twice, so it's basically mitosis but done twice and a little tweak to it, right? So you know that in meiosis we have like homologous chromosomes coming together and all of that stuff, right? So the factor that would cause variation, meaning cause them to be different, just like how human beings at the end we are different. Like you and your brother and your sister is not the same. Each person come with their own different tweak. You could have look alike all the while, but everybody come with a little tweak. and it's because of crossing over. So during prophase 1, crossing over takes place. That is basically where the chromosomes kind of swap a piece of like the gene. So that's crossing over, right, at the synapse. And then you have independent assortment that would take place in metaphase 1. So basically, independent assortment, it just mean that the chromosomes are going to line up completely randomly at the equator. So that's when that happens. They're going to just line up at the equator completely 100% randomly. Right? So that is basically what we go through, and hopefully this is useful, and we can say is good luck, and hope everybody do good on their exam.